Novel, Hail the King. Chapter 3, Don't Ever Do That. Angela screamed. As the flames grew in Gil's hand, she frantically looked for ways to stop him. However, it was all useless. Shit. Faye couldn't do anything else but to try to block it with the helmet he was holding in his hand. Boom. The fireball collided with the helmet, producing a burst of sparks and smoke. The helmet had turned red hot and splattered as it started to melt. Faye smelled burned flesh. He rushed as he tried to get the melting metal helmet off of his hand. Although he acted as fast as he could, the layer of skin on his inner palm had burned off already. The fireball appeared to have run out of energy, fizzing and finally became extinguished. Faye didn't have time to relax as he immediately saw another fireball forming upon Gil's hand. Judging from Gil's sweaty face, it was obvious that he was concentrating extremely hard to finish Faye off with this one. This time, Faye had nothing to block it with. This is not fair. Faye yelled, I challenge you to a wrestling match. Didn't your parents teach you that kids playing with fire will pee their pants? What? Angela and Emma were shocked speechless. Since was there such a saying? Looks like Alexander is still an idiot. Both of them thought disappointedly. However, what they didn't notice was that Faye had slowly moved to the other side of the bed, and managed to pick up the cuirass that he wore on the walls. He hid it behind his back as he slowly inched his way back towards Gil. Just wait. Once you get in my reach, I will teach you a lesson in place of your parents. Faye calculated the distance between them and was preparing to use some sneaky and dirty tactics to deal with Gil. But pee your own pants. Gil was furious. He was not going to hold back his wrath of a prestigious mage. He made up his mind to punish the retard king for what he did. The second fireball was flung towards Faye. Angela reacted fast. Although she so scared that her face paled, she made up her mind to save Faye by blocking the fireball with her body. Seeing Angela suddenly appear in front of Faye, Gil went into shock and tried to retrieve his fireball. However, it was already too late. Faye reacted immediately, shit. Without thinking, Faye grabbed Angela's shoulder and pressed her against his chest as he turned his body around. He felt the heat scorch across his back. Shit. I'm gonna die. At very moment, a big hand appeared out of nowhere and grabbed the fireball. It gave it a light squeeze, completely indifferent to the extreme heat radiating off of it. Faye watched with wide eyes as the fireball that could melt a metal helmet collapsed like an ice cream in a hot summer day. Hope was restored to Faye as he let go of Angela. A master, he thought. At the same time, the Gil's face froze. He stared at the men who appeared in the palace, his face turning paler than flour and his body starting to shake uncontrollably. Like a mouse that saw a cat, Gil was so scared that his voice turned into a completely different tone. Mr. Lampard, why are you here? Gil started sweating like crazy as he tried to explain himself. This, Mr. Lampard, didn't even look at Gil. He turned around and slightly bowed to Angela respectfully, and then looked at Faye coldly and said, Alexander, your majesty. Faye took a detailed look at this master. In front of him stood a handsome, 6'5" Caucasian man. With hair so red and vivid, it looked like a mane of burning fire.
What stood out the most was the huge 5-foot-long sword he was carrying on his back. It was as black as coal and looked to weigh about 200 pounds.
The thing that confused Faye was that, although this master was strong, his face was a bit pale. Faye guessed that he may have been injured in the siege. Faye also felt strange. Lampard saved him, but he wasn't very friendly towards him. Faye sensed a little bit of sad and hopelessness in his stares. Faye didn't know who he really was, so he just nodded in response. Mr. Lampard, can I go now? Gil was extremely scared. Lampard didn't even look at him. Go. Aren't you going to explain your offensive behavior towards the king? Explain. Well, you know, I was only joking. Yeah. Joking. You know I had grown up with him, right? I just didn't control my magic properly. I'm only a novice mage, not even a star rank. Gil quickly found an excuse. He was bullshitting so fluently that he almost believed in what he was saying. As he was spewing out excuses, he sensed a cold stare as sharp as a blade on his neck from Lampard. He knew that this man could kill him as easily as an ant. He was scared to continue to say anything, so he shut himself up and sheepishly smiled. Lampard had a disgusted look on his face. He closed his hand and everyone in the palace felt an invisible pressure. But Lampard's face showed that he had thought of something. He hesitated a bit, then opened his palm again and the pressure was gone. Get out of here. There's no next time. Lampard said as if he was shooing away a fly. Okay. Gil was relieved like a prisoner who received death penalty just got a pardon. He exhaled rapidly and bowed down to the tall man carrying the sword. Wait. As Gil was preparing to leave this place, Fei suddenly stopped him. Gil looked at Lampard, but the old man didn't say a word. He had to stop and listen to what Fei had to say. Fei gave his widest smile as he got closer and closer to Gil. He casually put his hand onto Gil's shoulder. Everyone thought the king was going to say something to comfort Gil because of his friendliness. However, he didn't say anything and started to slap Gil on the face like crazy. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again. He kept on yelling as he was slapping. The sound of the slaps almost formed a symphony. Fei's action sent Angela and Emma into a shock once more. The cold-faced Lampard was surprised by this as well. Is this brutal and crazy man the king? Is this really the idiot King Alexander? Poor Gil didn't know what to do. The appearance of Lampard had scared him into not using his abilities, and now he's afraid to even defend himself against Fei's assault. Gil regretted what he did as Fei gets his revenge. If I knew Alexander became this shameless after being shot by an arrow, I'd never have come here. He cried in his mind.
Fei finally stopped as his hand became numb.
Gil thought his nightmare was over as he stopped sniveling like a dog. Who knew that Fei rubbed his hands and kicked Gil right in the nether regions? He screamed in pain. His body quickly reacted by mimicking a fried shrimp. He bent his back and started to desperately crawl out of the palace, as if he was escaping hell. He had finally learned his lesson, and didn't want to ever see this insane king ever again. You got lucky this time. Fei yelled at Gil. He was a simple man. He was not going to taking any sort of humiliation and act like nothing happened. He wanted revenge on the spot. After releasing his anger on Gil, he felt much better. As Fei turned around, he saw the shocked expressions on Angela, Emma, and Lampard's face. They were staring at him as if he was some unknown monster. Shit. Did I overreact? Fei thought. Oh. My head is dizzy, I'm fainting. He fell onto the floor. Angela and Emma, who still have the hand mark on her face, got nervous. They thought the arrow injury was reoccurring again. They dragged him to the bed. Lampard looked at Fei. He was suspicious of Fei's terrible acting, but he didn't say anything. He asked Angela about Fei's arrow injury, comforted both Angela and Emma a little, and left with a ton of questions on his mind. My Majesty, the enemies are still sieging. Looks like your soldiers can't defend any longer. This is the last thing Lampard said before he left. Angela and Emma stood by him for a while. After seeing no sign of Fei waking up, Angela took Emma to the priest to get her face treated. After only Fei was left in the palace, he calmed down and started to think about the whole situation. Obviously he was in another universe. Not only Angela and Emma, but that meatball-shaped magician's magic and that mysterious old master's powerful skills had proven it. Fei was a poor graduate student. He grew up in an orphanage. He was in a hopeless situation because he had incurred a lot of debt for university, but couldn't find a job to pay it off. After thinking about it, Fei concluded that becoming the king in another universe was not a bad thing. As a king, I probably can do anything I want. He thought. He couldn't wait to use his powers. He started to map his situation. Looks like on my way back to my apartment, I was hit by a bright disk of some sort. I'm probably died on the spot, but somehow my soul came to this universe and possessed the body of this Alexander. From what has happened, Fei pieced together that this young king only had the intelligence of a 3-year-old. He didn't know what had happened to the last king, but the throne was taken by this Alexander. Obviously, all the ministers were opposed to this young king. Fei remembered getting shot by an arrow and then waking up in this bed. Probably by the time on the wall, my soul had just gained possession of this body. I'm not sure where the original Alexander went, but I'm the new Alexander now. The original Alexander the king was really an idiot. Fei possessed his body and for sure took over his memories as well. All he got was the basic information such as the language spoken in this kingdom, and some simple hobbies that the previous tenant of this body had. Other than that, Fei had no idea how big this kingdom was and how everything else worked. He only knew Angela, his fiancée, after he woke up in this world for the first time, and he had no recollection of Gil and Lampard. Thank God this guy was dumb. From now on when I mimic him, no one can tell I'm someone different. Fei touched his chin and nodded. But suddenly, he remembered something else. Before Lampard left, he mentioned something about enemies sieging the castle, and that the soldiers can't defend any longer. Damn it. Fei almost jumped out of the bed. Am I going to be a slave right after I became the king? The pressure of survival and reality scared Fei. Maybe I should pack up and sneak out of here. Shit. How can I sneak out when the enemies have already surrounded the castle? Can Master Lampard kill them? Wait, he is just one man, how can he face off an army? Plus, the enemies probably have masters too. Fei had no idea how he was going to get out of this situation. When he was on Earth, he was just a student. He had no talent in military nor in fighting. The best he could do was to handle a drunk dude at the bar. If you want him to lead an army, he didn't have enough strength to wear a full metal armor. Fei was furious. Why can't I just live my ordinary life on Earth? I don't want to be the king anymore. At this moment. Collecting players' information. 20%. 50%. 88%. 100%. Game system installation initiated, scanning brain capacity, requirement met. Install. A mysterious, mechanical-sounding voice appeared out of nowhere. It scared Fei almost to the death. This voice appeared directly in his mind. Shit, what is this? Ghost. He got no replies. Install complete. Entering Diablo world in 3, 2, 1, enter. Like the characters in the TV series Stargate, who travel through the Stargate, Fei felt dizzy and a mysterious and strange wave went through his body. Rogue encampment. Fei stood like a zombie at Rogue encampment, where the new players spawn in the game Diablo. His mind was blank. He had been standing here for the last 5 minutes. 5 minutes ago, after the 3-second countdown in his mind by the voice, his vision blurred and he landed here. This was a real Diablo world. A perfect and lively world. This was the conclusion Fei came to after the 5 minutes. The sky was dark and the rain was pouring down. An unknown dark green, bryophyte had grown all over the ground. Dark soil appeared further away. The camp was empty. Cluck, 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 only a few hungry hens were seeking food in the rain. A cold breeze blew through Fei and he shook in the cold. The vivid sensation from every nerve in his body reminded him that this was real, this was a real world, not a stiff 2D computerized screen.